Concepts. I'm your host, James Renford Powell. This is the show where we talk to a number of different people, spiritual leaders, individuals, about what they believe, why they believe it, and what they're doing about it. In other words, how did they come to the belief that they hold, and how's it manifesting in their lives? Our guest today, now this show is sponsored by the Institute of Applied Metaphysics and Core Concepts, is also sponsored by the Church of Revelation, COR, and by the Grindz Coffee Shop. We're in Ahmed Sharif's coffee shop, and maybe we'll get a chance to introduce him later in the show. This is on Dexter Road near Germantown Parkway in Cordova, or Memphis, Tennessee. Our guest today is Keith Blanchard, and Keith has you are the most frequent. This is the third time that you've been on the show, and nobody else has been on Core Concepts 3 times.
Oh, that's a good thing.
He was also the first one to be on the show. Now, Keith is a professional musician, but he's also an author of the Divine Principles, which he may show you a little bit later, Divine Principles, and he is also, they've also made a movie about you, haven't they? Made you a movie star. or was it a biography?
It's a documentary.
It's a documentary. So I'm pretty much going to turn it over to him because instead of asking questions, I'm going to let him talk. And then if I think he goes too crazy, I'll ask him a question. Welcome to the show.
Stand up.
That's all right.
As I have before in the past, I talk about Sai Baba. I have a book that's going to be coming out in about a month, 2 months top. It's called For the Love of God. It's about my experience with Satya Sai Baba. Anybody here familiar with the incarnation of this avatar? Satya Sai Baba is a man who lived in South India. He passed 2 Easters ago. I can't begin to tell you the level of spiritual endowment of this man. And I don't say this because of things I've read. As Jim said, it's about what you know to be real, what you have experienced will become your truth. It started for me years ago. I was having dreams, and anybody here familiar with Deepak Chopra? Well, if you look at a picture of Deepak Chopra and Sai Baba side by side, they look like they're twin brothers. And I do believe in those dream experiences, Sai Baba was coming to me to acclimate me to his slowly but surely ongoing presence. Because my mind didn't know of him yet, so my mind had to find the nearest likeness. I was teaching a spiritual class at the Connection Center some years ago. And after the class was over, a friend of mine by the name of Paul, we were talking, and there was a wall. And on this wall, they had all these different pictures of these deities. Jesus, Mother Teresa, Buddha, Gandhi, so forth and so on. And Sai Baba was the last one. Well, I said, well, who is he? After he explained the whole lot of the person, what their mission was and their mission statement. Excuse me. He got to Sai Baba and he says, well, he picks up this canister and he opens it up. And in this canister was some ash. And he says, well, Keith, this ash was literally spontaneously manifested by his will. It pours out of his hand. So being somewhat new on the spiritual path as a teacher, I was hooked. I was intrigued. I wanted to see it for myself. I wanted to know more about if there was someone on this planet that had the ability to manifest that will. I want to know more about it because that's what I want for myself. And the reason I want to manifest that will, I'm sure like we all do, is we like doing things with an effortlessness. I like the idea of being able to think something and being so clear about it that it can spontaneously manifest. Jesus proves this. Well, there's no wine at the wedding. Well, the first thing he has is a thought. Well, we need wine. In fact, the second thing he needs is power, which is feeling, and he taps into that center of himself, which is connected to everything. It is the wine. It is the water. It is whatever it is you want it to be. There's no disconnect between himself, the person who formulates the ideas, and the being who can literally bring such things about. Well, Jesus is considered a yogi. He is a man over the course of his life who became one with God. Buddha was a yogi. He was a man who, over the course of his life, he became one with God. We are actually all yogis. We're all aspiring to a higher level of being, a higher level of consciousness. Sai Baba in this case is not a yogi. Sai Baba was born with an enlightened consciousness. In fact, at about the age of 13 years old, he was walking to school. Turns around, goes back home, and they ask him why he's not in school, and he threw his books down. He says, "This is no longer what I'm going to be doing." He says, "Right now you're a fortunate few because you get an easy glimpse of me. Years to come, you're going to have to stand miles away to see me. There'll be such crowds." And this prophecy has been fulfilled. So going back to where I left off, I started reading every possible book I could find about the life of Bhagavan Sri Satya Sai Baba. This is kind of an idea of who he is. It's an outline. I usually bring pictures on some of the ash and a lot of stuff I got when I was in India. I had a long night last night, so I just didn't do that. But after I started reading these books, now keep in mind, Sai Baba does not write books. This man is an avatar, translates to divine descent. He's way above writing books. And I don't mean egotistically wise. He's not better or above it. He's truly just above the idea of writing books. People write books about him. Scientists, doctors, people who don't believe in this kind of stuff. They hear all the excitement, all the hype. They're the ones who went to India to find out what all the noise was about. Probably with the idea of disproving it. Coming back, writing these books with the wow factor on. I don't know what that was. That is something I can't explain. So these are the books I was reading about the power, the magic, the mystery of Sai Baba. So he started appearing to me in sleep as himself. And again, if you see a picture of Deepak Chopra and Sai Baba side to side, my point would be understood how much they look alike. And then Sai Baba began to appear to me as himself. Experience. Weekly, this would happen sometimes 2 or 3 times. A few days would skip, then it would come in such levels of intense consciousness. Sometimes I would be I would say pretty much every time, I am as conscious as I am now giving this talk when I have these lucid experiences. I don't know how I can say it other than sometimes even more so than I am conscious now. It's a very different level of being, a very different way of seeing things. One night, in a dream state, I was awakened out of my sleep. And I remember him tapping me on my leg, my spiritual knee, if you will. And I come to a state of consciousness. And he's above here with the highway. And he's across the river. And he's talking to me. And I can hear him telepathically. And he says, "Keith, I want you to come to India." Now, he didn't speak this to me. It was one impression. And so I'm thinking, yeah, I love the idea. How will I go? Where will I get the money? How am I going to put this together? I've never done such a thing. I don't know if I can do this. And he says, "Keith, you need to put all this aside. You need to learn to transcend your doubt, your disbelief. I will take care of everything. If you came here and put your foot on Indian soil, only to turn around and go home, do this for me." He goes, "But trust me, everything will be taken care of." So the next morning I wake up, just leveled by the experience I just had, and to the degree of consciousness that I was able to play with this person, this being. Wondering the same things. How will I get there? Where will I get the money? How do I put such a trip together? And I went, I guess I'm going to India. What happens next, 2 weeks into the future? I tell you with the absolute honesty of every fiber of my being. I get a phone call from a lady I've never met in my life, out of nowhere. "Hi, Keith." "Hello, who am I speaking with?" "My name is Debbie Jabor." "Hi, Debbie, what can I do for you?" "Well, Keith, we have a mutual friend by the name of Naval. Okay? He told me you want to go to India to see a holy man." I said, "Yeah, this is true." She goes, "Well, I'm a flight attendant, and I have some buddy passes or companion passes for the year that are about to expire. And I would hate that to happen, knowing that you want to go to India to see a holy man. Can I give you a first-class round-trip ticket?" So, as you can imagine, my mouth hits the floor. Knowing what I knew about spirituality, the art and the mastership of manifesting, And at that time in my life, the very likely truth of the presence of this avatar. When that lady called me and offered me that ticket, in hindsight, 2 weeks before, knowing that somehow I need to relax and trust that if I'm ever going to go, that what he told me in that dream was going to happen. When it manifested, something changed. It was like someone can tell you something over and over and over. But when there's a connection, it transforms you. It anchors itself. It becomes solid in you forevermore. And when she said, I'll give you a first class round trip ticket, I was opened up. How many people here have followed, maybe in your past, a Christian path, or a Buddhist path, or a Hindu path, or whatever is your chosen deity at any point in your life? What I would like you to do in this moment, if you had a deity that you prefer or you follow, is imagine what would that be like for you if you could feel, see, experience, touch, literally, have them talk to you, but also to see them in their magic, to use the word, in their divinity, in their ability to literally reach into the unmanifest and bring it right in front of your face. If you can, call it that feeling, if you can imagine what it would be like to be in the presence of Jesus. Literally, he was walking by. How would that feel for you? The reason I tell you to play with this idea of feeling is because being able to go to India, to be in the energy and the proximity of Sai Baba, I had that feeling. So my experience with Southeast Sai Baba had nothing to do with him whatsoever. He was the excuse for me to feel that feeling. He was all just a mirror. Powerful mirror. But he was a very clear mirror. And so, naturally, when I would go to India to see my chosen Lord, my chosen deity, or a teacher that I really revered, I was open. Completely open. So, as the story fast forwards, I go to India. Everywhere I went, I went to India by myself, never went overseas. I was supposed to get shots. I was supposed to be inoculated because there are certain diseases I might be susceptible to, different bacteria. And I said, I really don't have an agenda to go there to get sick. And I don't believe this avatar came to me in sleep to invite me over there to go get their version of Montezuma's revenge. I just don't believe it. So I decided not to be inoculated. And I realized in transit from Memphis to India, I was always protected and watched over by guards. When I got on the plane from Michigan, this is where I'm going to tell you some of the stories, some of the miracles I've experienced. And at any moment, if anyone has any questions, please feel free. I'm in the plane now in Michigan, and we're about to fly to Amsterdam. 8 hours or so. After we get leveled 41,000 feet and we get cocktails or food or drink, it's that time where you select the movie and people start nodding off and sleeping for however many hours. Well, I decided, because for 2 months I couldn't sleep because I'm going to see God in physical form. So every night I'm wrestling with sleep. So I decided, well, this is a good time to get some sleep. Hours go by and I'm awakened out of my sleep because the captain says, all right, passengers, we're about to start our descent into Amsterdam. And I look down the plane, down the aisle, and I see the waitress, flight attendant, coming towards me. And she was no longer herself because superimposed over her, Sai Baba. It was her, but I can see a translucent figure. Just, it was governing her. And it was coming towards me. And I'm doing one of these numbers, and it was coming towards me. And it said, Keith, you have read that I'm famous for doing such things. They call them leelas divine sport or play. And he literally sits next to me on the plane. And I've read in many of the books that if you get on the plane to come see me and there's an empty seat next to you, it's very likely I'm going to be sitting there the whole trip. And I'm already establishing a dialogue with this energy, but not yet really, I wouldn't say not wanting to. I didn't know how to. I never had a dialogue with an invisible figure sitting next to me in a plane. And so it's relentlessly, it's relentless just talking to me, and it wouldn't stop. And it sits next to me, and then it dissipates. So once I finally got to India, and I'm sitting in the airport, it's very awkward to see people with machine guns, especially when one butts you with the end of the rifle because you're sleeping. And in fact, it's like everywhere I went, I was being guided. The soldier there, I realized he was there to serve and protect. He said, when I dozed off, he says, "I'm going to wake you up. I know where you're going." "Well, how in the world do you know where I'm going?" He goes, "You want to see Sai Baba?" I said, "Yeah." And so everywhere I went, people were guiding me. Don't go there, turn there. I know where you're going. And so there was like this intuitive psychic thing that was happening everywhere. It was like everybody I encountered was put there to guide me and serve me and somehow be of help. So I finally get to India. Not believing what's about to happen, but yet believing it. I didn't know how to be. I didn't know how to act. So I get to India, pull up to the ashram, and believe me when I tell you, magic and miracles and synchronicity happening at every stop along the way. I finally get to the ashram, I go to the orientation office. As soon as I get there, he says, "You've never been here before." Because many people have returned and seen Sai Baba many times. I said, "No." He says, "Put your bags down, run down to the end of this street. Take a left, take a right, look over there, you'll see the mandar, which is the go in there, Sai Baba will be out in 15 minutes. Run." So I'm running. And because I'm there so late, you have to imagine a temple big enough to house, 50,000+ people. Daily they are there. Sometimes in the hundreds of thousands, depends if it's a festival day, Mahashivaratri festival, or his birthday. But 50,000 people sitting in lotus position like this. You can't move. It's a sea of people. Women on one side, men on the other. And they do it that way because they don't want the distraction of men and women mingling together. You're there for your growth. And so I'm way in the back, and I hear this music, this Hindi music just whining in the back, and you hear 50,000 people murmuring. It's kind of musical, actually. It's like this low, constant rumble. All of a sudden, the music stops. And this huge bell begins to clang 3 times. And after the third clang, 50,000 people go into an Om mantra. Om. That energy begins to build and exponentiate. And your whole being starts to resonate like a tuning fork. And then you begin to open up. It's kind of like you're peeling layers of yourself off. And then after the Oms, everybody's head turns to the little gate on the right. I'm going, I think it's about to happen. This little 5'1" man, big old hair, walks out, and I'm thinking to myself, this is real. And I'm finding myself coming to a state of realization because talk about we have dreams we all want to realize. Well, I had literally a dream at night, and it was realized. I was in the temple looking at an avatar, which is considered the highest, if there is such a thing, incarnation of God to ever come to the planet. And spiritual masters will tell you that themselves. And when I see this divine expression, which walks, these moments bring me back. the most amazing grace. It's like he's gliding on water. It's amazing. Pinching myself, allowing myself to finally take in the idea that this is really happening. All from a dream. But while I was there, the second day, third day, for the 2 weeks that I was there, I was able to see things in one day that most people who are even considered blessed people will never experience in their life. Miracles. Changing the weather. Walks right up to a person and turns his hand and literally delivers an object. When I was in the temple, of course, when he comes in, 50,000 people are focused. So if we believe that energy follows attention, and he wants to manifest something, well, just by his very presence as to why people have traveled from all over the world, from every religious faith, to be there with him. So wherever he goes, 50,000 people are watching. So you have all this conscious power, attention, energy follows attention, focused on him. When he starts turning that hand, you can feel the consciousness begin to shift. It gets higher and it gets very powerful. I've often wondered, if we think about Star Wars, use the Force, it's around you. When Sai Baba manifests things, though he can do it alone, if he often uses the energy of everybody else's one-pointed focus, because it's all on him, so he's probably just drawing off that energy, just literally bringing that stuff about. It's like we all go to the place where the object came from, and we all brought it back together. That's how it feels. But it also helps you to remember what it's like to be in that very essence that we know as ourselves. It's like we remember what it's like to be literally that powerful. That powerful. And I can sit here and tell you manifestations I've seen. I'll give you another quick story. I was writing the Divine Principle. This is about an 8-year project, actually. And about four and a half years into the project, I love the idea of being an author. I love the idea of writing. I just didn't know if it was something that should continue. I didn't know if it run its course. And I didn't want to make my first 1 or 2 days in India with Sai Baba and say, this is about me. Do you want me to finish this book? I knew there was going to be a time. So one day in particular, I guess today's the day, I felt it. And my prayer was, if you want me to write and finish this book, I'd be happy to. But if it's run its course and I'm wasting my time, give me an absolute clear sign so I can put my energies in something beneficial. Months before, I read a book by a man named Robert Priddy. He wrote a book about Sai Baba's life called The Source of the Journey. Sai Baba walks in and does what he does, blesses people, manifests things, heals people, bang, on the spot. And he points to Robert Priddy out of 50,000 people and starts writing in the air. But he also, that means maybe 8 to 10 people a day, Sai Baba will talk to you personally. Go in a little room and he will tell you about your life and talk to you. I was so lucky. But Robert Priddy, the guy who wrote that book I'm telling you about, had a personal interview. And Sai Baba said, you saw me writing in the air and pointing at you? He said, I want you to write a book about what you experienced here with me in my life. So Robert Priddy told that story. So as I'm asking Sai Baba within, did you want me to finish his book? I went, give me the same sign you gave Robert Priddy. His hand goes. And of course, my human logic is gone. Because what transpires, think about it. You send someone a telepathic thought when you realize they actually heard you and they're doing something about it. Yet again, your level of conviction in spirituality, the fact that we are telepathic, the fact that we are all telekinetic, becomes anchored within. And so he starts writing in the air. And so my human logic, or doubt, I'm going, oh, wow. So now keep in mind, he's walking, and he went from here to here, and I go, do it again. And his hand goes up, he starts writing again. So I said, okay, once, twice, thrice. That's the magic number, and I'm going for it. And now he's over here, and I look up, and there he is, and he's pointing at me. Right in the book. After he leaves the temple. And what I'm about to tell you, it just explains the kinds of, the levels of synchronicity that were happening. After he leaves the temple, they allow you to bring books in because sometimes the wait to see him can be an hour and a half, 2 hours. So after it was over, the man next to me is reading a book. He had a book, and he's thumbing to us. Saram. It can mean hello. Saram can mean goodbye. It can mean excuse me. There's a varied meanings. But the meaning of Saram means kind of like namaste. I recognize the divine in you. And I said, what you reading? He goes, well, see for yourself. And he closes the book. And the author, his name is Kenneth Blanchard. And my last name is Blanchard. So I'm thinking that's the big wow factor, right? The Blanchard similarity. And also he pointed at me when I asked him to give him the sign of Robert Pretty. And I'm thinking that's the big, which it was. But this kind of thing was happening every day, all day long. Well, I would take a shower that night. And it dawned on me who Kenneth Blanchard is. No relation to the author. But my dad has a brother named Kenneth Blanchard, who happens to be my godfather. And so these kinds of things were happening the whole time. Needless to say, after 2 weeks of being impregnated on many different levels, I began to get real full, and I literally just could not take it anymore. It was the experience. It was very, very rich. I mean, I can literally begin to feel myself blow. You will read things, if you do research about Sai Baba, you will find things on both sides of the fence. Some people will say these, to use a word, bad thing, that he's a charlatan. Well, trust me when I tell you. Trust me when I tell you that Sai Baba does do trickery, but he does it on purpose. He's only a mirror. He does not respond. He has no really any will for himself. Because he's God, he's moved by humanity. And if you're standing in front of an absolute pure mirror with doubt, he's going to reflect that to you. And it's not because he wants to. It's basically, he's under your control. Because the universe responds according to your will. And because he's selfless. And self-love, what you ask for, he gives. But he will manifest things. Because he wants, it's like a magician. He wants to see your level of belief. He does not want to reveal to you the secret. Do you believe? I mean, I know this to be a fact when someone walks up to you, claps his hands, and the weather just changes right in front of your face. And you don't acquire, even the best of charlatans cannot acquire 150 million plus followers. There is a serious light there. But Sai Baba is known, as I said, to be the highest incarnation to come to the planet. But Sai Baba is an avatar. There are also beings known as Mahavatars. Sai Baba was born. Jesus was born. Buddha was born. Mahavatars are not born at all. They just at will from the Godhead just pop out of body and exist through it. Babaji was one. He lived in a body for 300 years and manifested a 30-year-old body. Lived in it for 300 years. But if you want to find things about Sai Baba, it is all over the internet. Believe half of what you read. You're going to find the magic and the power in Sai Baba, not in the things I'm telling you that he's able to do. You're going to find it in his message. The message is what will clearly show you the level of spiritual enlightenment this being possesses. You will find things out there that are about, let's just leave it at that. When you come across it, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I'd say don't invest too much in it. But also know, because I am being honest with you about things, there are things that divine beings can and will do that is solely for your growth, though you may not like it, or you may not understand it. That'll come clear to you when you stumble across such information. Any questions? Jim?
Yeah, Chris.
So how do we know when you finish?
I'm sorry?
How do we know when you have finished? You said it might take you 2 months.
Oh, the new one. Yeah, it should be about 2 months at most. Right now I'm in the formatting process. You can find me at KeithAnthonyBlanchard.com. Or you can also find me on Facebook at Keith Anthony Blanchard. But I still have experiences with Sai Baba. This was in the year 2000. I was given some prophetic information while I was there by him. These events have happened. It hasn't happened for us yet, as far as us seeing that truth. It's surrounding the reappearance of the one who knows Jesus. That he will be here. In fact, as far according to Sai Baba, he is here. The whole 2 weeks when I was here before I went to India, every day I'd take a nap without fail. When I got to the ashram, I never took a nap. One day after going into the temple, after the darshan, blessing of the holy name was over, I became very drowsy. Not because I wanted my daily nap. It was like something was inducing sleep. Like a cold medicine. Like Nyquil or something. I was getting sleepy and it wasn't by my choice. So I go lay down and I go into a dream state, Sai Baba. The only one I ever had with him while on his ashram. I'm this conscious. And we're in a gymnasium. And we're 20 whatever people that's in the dreamscape with me. Sai Baba's in the middle of the room. And he says, and there's a gold case. He turns his hand and materialized this gold crate, which is sort of like the Ark of the Covenant type chest. Sacred writings, carvings, just beautiful. Made out of solid gold. That was apparently obvious. Abundantly obvious. And he says, let's everyone come down and grab a piece of this cover. And we're all going to lift it together. And we're going to see what's inside. So I raise it up. And he looks directly to me. And I've been hearing this in my consciousness since I was a child. I never thought anything of it. I was Catholic. Seemed commonplace. But when I was writing the Divine Principle, I wrote a chapter called The Return of the Christs, plural. It was good, but I didn't think it was going to make the book. It didn't feel like it was going to belong. So I asked in prayer, do you want this chapter? Well, that night, 2 angels, literally, when I tell you 2 angels come to you, you say, well, how do you know? You know. There is no undenying it. You know. Because that's the word that pops up when they show up, when they speak in one ear, in each ear, and sound like one voice. And they said, Keith, we asked you to log this information ever since you were a child. Write it down. Okay, I did. So I go to India. When I go into the sleep experience with Sai Baba, he turns to me and he says, well, after we took the lid off, there were 3 figurines. There was a crib, there were 2 goats, and there was a throne. And he looks to me and he says, Keith, I'm going to tell you something you've been wrestling with for a long time. And I'm going to tell you again, and it's something you already know. The personality that you know as Jesus, the man, and he points to the figurines, will be born, implying the crib. He will be born into a family of goat herders, implying the goats, and he will occupy this divine seat. So I wake up from this dream experience, cussing like a sailor, mad. I didn't know why I was mad. My anger felt purposeful, like it was there for a reason for me to process. And I said, I don't understand. Why this keeps coming to my attention. And what am I supposed to do with it? I don't like the weight of it. I don't like the pressure. I accepted it. I wrote it down. Is that not enough? And this is how I'm talking, but I'm using serious words. And so after I felt like I vented out my frustrations, I decided to get a little more real about the experience. So I went inside. I went out of the first blessing in the morning. I went outside the ashram and bought a prayer bead. I said, what a good time to use my brand new prayer bead. And I knew I had to be very, very clear about my words and my intentions. I want to know the experience that I had with you just now in my own interpretation is exactly the truth. Don't jack me around. Don't bull me around. I want to know the absolute truth of this matter. Because I'm the one that has to sleep at night. And I kept saying the word, is it valid? Is it valid? On this prayer bead. I sat on this prayer bead for 2+ hours in the beating hot sun, waiting to get back into the temple for his second darshan. Is it valid? Is it valid? Over and over. Go to the temple. I'm sitting in the temple now, continuing my prayer. People all around me. And when I felt heard, like I'm complete, I opened my eyes, and there's a seva doll, which means attendant, someone of self-service. I'm sitting in lotus position, and he's like this in my face, knee to knee with me, mirroring me. He was so quiet, I never knew he was there until I opened my eyes. When I opened my eyes, he was there, and it startled me, and I looked down, and his ID badge is turned around backwards. And what it said floored me. It said valid 2000. Excuse me, Cyril. What does that mean? And he looks to me. And he goes, I guess that means it's valid. You can imagine what began to stir up inside of me at that point. He turns his badge around the right way. Now we're talking about Jesus. He lived on Cross Street. Sai Baba told me it was going to happen in 5 months. He lived on 5 Cross Street. His name was Yana, which is the name of my spiritual company, Yana, O Center of Light. All these things were just starting to manifest in this moment. Sai Baba finally comes into the temple. Now keep in mind that first blessing, I had a prayer bead that I asked him to bless. He blessed John Doe, Jim Doe, Jack Doe, skipped right over me, went to somebody else. He did it on purpose because he was setting me up for that whole experience, to buy that second prayer bead, to have that dream experience, to do everything. It was like a divine script. It was all written out. I was just acting it out. So Sai Baba finally comes in. I said, okay, here we go. Is it valid? I raise up this new prayer bead. Sai Baba was facing the other way. As soon as I said, is it valid? He literally stops what he's doing, almost interrupting his conversation with this person, and walks straight over to me, and I raise up the prayer bead. He didn't only just touch and bless it. It's sort of like he laid his hand in mine, blessing it, of course. When he touched me, I was aware of my personality self looking up at him. But something else happened. The roles were reversed, and I can see myself as the higher being looking down at my human self through his eyes. I can see it clearly. And in that expression, I saw the expansion of the universe. I saw the birth, I guess you could say, but it wasn't a seeing as if we might know to be. It was a very different kind of seeing. And in that moment, I became so uncentered, I guess you can say, by the overwhelmingness of it all. I started to become so emotional. I had to leave the temple. Not because I was concerned with people might think of me being emotional. I was losing it to the degree that I was becoming a distraction to everybody else that was there. And I had to leave. And when I left, I decided to go to the thought boards. They were daily thought boards. And the thought boards usually, more so than not, pertain to the lesson of the day. So I said, well, trying to process and digest, and I'll allow all of this to sit with me. I decided to go to the thought board. The thought board said, when I pin a badge upon your apparel, and you become validated, it went into the whole story again. So these are some of my experiences with the avatar of Southeast Sai Baba. You can go to SaiCast.org, S-A-I, cast, C-A-S-T.org. There are movies about his life, hour-long movies, great stuff. Sai means mother, Baba means father. So he is literally the incarnation of the Godhead in the form of a human being. He's no longer on the planet. He died about, I think it was 2 Easters ago. Yeah, 2 Easters ago. But these are some of my experience with the Satya Sai Baba. I still have them. I had one last week. I had one the week before. They're not as frequent because when I got back from India, though I still revere and devoted to him as an icon for me to aspire to. When I got back from India, everything about my love for Sai Baba had shifted. It was no longer about him being the icon. It was more or less that I was becoming it, or he, to use the word. So this is about my time with Sai Baba. Any questions? Anyone? We can go to any time as a Jim.
You still have a few minutes. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the film, the documentary that has been made of you?
Yeah, sure. About 4 years ago, a friend of mine, Phil Galati, about 5 years ago, PJ Galati from New York, he was living here. He read my book and started using some of the principles, and he wanted to go to New York to film school to become an independent film director. And he called me because he was having trouble with the idea. He was wrestling with it. I want to go. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I said, that ain't your job. I said, your job is to plant your feet and beat your feet toward the yard. It's the universe's job to put it all together. And the more passion you put behind your stride towards that direction, the faster it's going to manifest. So I said, look, if the universe is offering you the opportunity to live out your dream, you would be an absolute fool to not do it. Well, he did. I haven't talked to him from that moment. 2 years later, after he graduated, I get a phone call out of nowhere. Again, manifestation. I get a phone call out of nowhere, and it's funny. He goes, dude, I just got out of film school, graduated with honors. I want to thank you for what you did, and I want to do that by filming a documentary movie about your life and your teachings. How you do and why you do what you do, and how it works. And he was a living testimony. The movie is called Do What You Love. We didn't have a plot, no script, nothing. He just came down with his crew and his camera, and we started filming. And we started realizing that this is my passion, my music is my passion, my live music with my rock band is my passion. And we realized through the filming that it needs to be called Do What You Love. Path to passion living. So if we believe that God is a being of love, when you do what you love, obviously you connect. Then prosperity by law becomes a natural response. Could it be that easy? And so I did some interviews. Steve Lancaster, wonderful friend of Jim and I's, phenomenal, gifted speaker. He interviewed me a few times in the movie, but the movie is really about giving you the tools to create your best life. You can go to dowhatyoulove.themovie.com. If you contact me, KeithAnthonyBlanchard.com, I'll make sure to give you a heads up when the movie is actually going to be out. It's going to be available on YouTube and probably also Gaia TV. At KeithAnthonyBlanchard.com is a free audio meditation. Lots of really cool music behind it. Headphones are suggested. Lots of stereo imaging happening in your head and here. That's another way you can stay in touch with me. But the movie is about empowering people. It's my gig. I love taking what I was given through being a student of Sai Baba, through all the books, stacks of books I've read, internal soul-searching inquiry, extensive mind cleansing, all of my life, at least the last 20 years. But I like giving that bag of goodies to people, and the next time I see them, I like seeing the energetic difference, knowing that it's changed them somehow. That's really what I like doing. And that's probably what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I like empowering people. And I've always said that, and this is without arrogance, ego, that it would be my goal or my mission to have a talk with you, and you never need to go to anyone else ever again. Except for entertainment. I want to be that thorough with my work. That is my goal. That is what I want for myself. Leonida introduced me to a lady a few years ago at a spiritual fair with the idea that this lady at my table, Keith, needs your help. So I went there to save the day. Boy, was I wrong. That lady, just in her simple way of being, as soon as I walked to the table, I can feel that she lost 2 male role figures in her life. And as I sat down, I started talking to her. Her dad and her husband both just died. And I was telling her that I could literally, energetically see all these little magical things around her. I said, sweetheart, I said, there is such magic all around you. She goes, I can't see it. And so I said, trust me, it's there. And we played with words for a little while. So I go outside to take a break. And as I'm sitting outside, just going over what just happened with this lady, I started finding myself becoming emotional because she had the spirit of being beat down to where she was just completely broken. There was nothing left. I mean, if the scenario was, you're going to kill me by beating me, just go ahead and do it. I'm done. I'm just not going to resist. That was her spirit. And thinking about her outside started to move to a level of compassion that is God. And I always realize that the deeper you can humble yourself, the closer to God you touch. And so when I went outside and started thinking about this lady, and I started becoming moved inside and teary-eyed, I went up there to show her what transformation looked like. Because it was happening to me. Thinking that I was going over there to help her. She was there as a sounding board for me. And I really enjoy meeting people such as Lena, Jim, and all you fine people. That moves me the same way. But the movie Do What You Love is going to be out in about a month. Please make sure you get it's a $5 rent. It won't break you. It's an hour and a half long. Very, very well done. Lavender Soul, my spiritual band. We performed some songs on it, so the music's really cool. But that's my life in a nutshell.
You mentioned earlier that something about return of Jesus and so forth. Were you told to look for him, or that they would be in touch with you, or what?
It was supposed to happen. Well, I can't speak like that. I was knowing what I experienced with the plane ride and the plane ticket and everything else. I was told that he was going to be born June 20th of the year 2000. Because I was in Sai Baba's ashram January, February, March, April, May, June. June, July 20th. Well, 5 months. June 20th. From the time I went. And lo and behold, one night in a dream experience, I'm outside of a house, and there's Sai Baba. And I'm standing by this mansion. The reason it was a mansion implied royalty lives there, so it has to be majestic. Huge doors, big old knockers implying royalty lives in here. So and I'm talking. When I see him in sleep, I'm so excited, like a puppy dog's tail wagging. I start rambling. I say, shh, Keith. Come here. He says, put your ear in the door. So I'm listening to the door. And I hear an infant. And he says, before you even ask me, that is exactly what you think it is. So he leaves me there by myself, knowing I'm going to go back to the door and keep putting my ear in the door. In the dream experience, there was, believe it or not, I knew that the house belonged to Donnie and Marie Osmond. What could that possibly mean? How can that possibly relate? Let me ask you. What's the first thing you think of as far as character? Well, what do you think about their character? What do you think of Donnie Marie's character? Wholesome, purity. You see, that's the impression I got as to why that was their house. As soon as they came out of the sleep experience, Jesus was sitting, he was standing in a vending booth like at a fair. And I walked up to him and he says, I just want to let you know that I am on this planet today. Yes, Keith, I mean. In fact, one other quick story. A friend of mine by the name of Ricky Dell, growing up Catholic, he heard about Sai Baba. Liked it, but it did kind of rub him a little the wrong way because it wasn't what he was always used to about Catholicism. But he liked the idea. Eventually, his curiosity was piqued. He went to India. Now, keep in mind the experience I told you about Jesus, Christmas. Obviously, we know Christmas to be the birth of the day of Christ's birth. Just so happens, I didn't know Rick went to India. Rick goes to India, calls me when he gets back. He happened to go to Sai Baba's ashram the year after me on Christmas Day. And he walks out. Sai Baba walks out of his room, holding a sign. See if I can remember exactly verbatim what he said. The sign said. He said when Sai Baba came out of the room, he was holding up a sign for all to see that says, Jesus is here. Jesus is with us here today. He said that when Sai Baba, again, here with us today on Christmas, implying the birth of Christ, he said, Keith, when you told me this stuff a while back, he goes, I really didn't know what to believe about it. He goes, but you really have my attention now.
Are there any final questions? We got just a couple of minutes. No? Thank you very much for being with us today, Keith. I want to remind you that you can see, depends on whether you're seeing the show, but you can go to youtube.com, type in Renford Broadcast Network, and view these shows. I want to invite you to go to blogtalkradio.com/Renford. There's shows in the Radio by Renford Network that are daily. Keith is the host of the Searcher's Roadmap that comes on Monday nights at 8 o'clock Central Standard Time, correct?
Yes.
Now, Keith, when I started to expand the shows and started the No Show, I asked Keith if he'd be interested in doing the Searcher's Roadmap show, and he said he looked at his calendar and he said, I can do it through June. I think it's been about 3 years now that he's been doing the Searcher's Roadmap show. I invite you to go to blogtalkradio.com/Renford. Check that out and go to the IAM-COR.org website. This is the virtual campus of the Institute of Applied Metaphysics. You can view the 3 degree levels of study, all the courses, and visit the bookstore. I want to take just a minute as we're closing out to thank the host, Hoffman Sharif. This is his place, the Grindz Coffee Shop. We have some people with us today who have been on the show before. Julie Dennis has been a guest on the show. And Joshua from New Zealand has been on, we say from New Zealand, I don't know really where he's from. His folks all come from Egypt. They're Jewish descent. He ends up in Venezuela. Now he's in New Zealand. Now he's in Memphis. What's happened? So we're welcome. We want to thank you for being back with us again, Joshua. You can go see the show that Joshua was on as well and that Julie has been on. Thanks again for being with us on Core Kindness.